As promised, CLS Blue Sky blog, Columbia Law School blog on corporations and the capital markets. To mask or not to mask, it's not a constitutional question. By Daniel R. Karen and Gilliam E. Karen, October 29th, 2020. 6 comments on this post. In 1979, police in Pensacola, Florida, arrested Ku Klux Klan member B.W. Robinson for covering his face at a rally. He pleaded no contest so he could appeal his conviction to the Florida Supreme Court. Once there, Robinson challenged the constitutionality of Florida's anti-mask statute. He insisted it deprived him of due process and infringed upon his First Amendment rights. The Florida Supreme Court reversed Robinson's conviction, ruling that the law was constitutionally overbroad because it was susceptible of application to entirely innocent activities. Wait a second. Are we saying that not too long ago an ultra-conservative Floridian took his case to a state Supreme Court to fight for his right to wear a mask? Yep. Is this fake news? Nope. No, I'm not going to challenge that. So what gives? Why do some people now philosophically insist that mandatory mask mandates are unconstitutional? We'll resist answering that question as it involves a political discussion beyond the scope of this post. But we will textually discuss whether mask mandates are unconstitutional. And they're not. The early case for the legality of mask mandates, and I'm going to tear this article a new cactified asshole. Count on it. And they're not. The early case for the legality of mask mandates. One argument that opposers of anti-mask laws raise involves freedom of association, namely that their inability to wear masks deprived them of the anonymity needed to express their views. For instance, Klan members argued that they would face harassment if they couldn't wear masks. Likewise, political opponents of the Shah of Iran successfully argued that they needed masks to avoid reprisals from the Shah's security forces. Opponents of anti-mask laws also argued that masks constitute symbolic speech. That argument didn't fare well. Courts held that the mask added little to expressive content, considering, for instance, the rest of the Klan members' regalia. Courts explained that the state's concern about safety and avoiding intimidation satisfied the substantial state interest test for symbolic speech cases. Finally, anti-masking law opponents claimed these laws violated the Equal Protection Clause because they made exceptions for Halloween masks, masquerade balls, and various medical uses. Sometimes these arguments worked. Sometimes it didn't. Current arguments against the legality of mask mandates. Here are some examples of anti-maskers' arguments for why mask mandates are illegal. Costco Karen. Oh, great example. I'm going to be your real case study for why masks are illegal. Me, right here. Spread this video far and wide. Far and wide. I want to see many views. But I know YouTube is going to suppress the views on this. We expect these things from commies. Anyway, Costco Karen, as she is called, staged a sit-in at a Hillsboro, Oregon Costco after she refused to wear a mask, proclaiming, "I'm an American, I have constitutional rights." A group called Health Freedom Idaho protested the Boise mask mandate. One protester said, "I'm afraid where this country is headed if we all just roll over and abide by control that goes against our constitutional rights." Responding to a reporter who asked why President Trump appeared unconcerned about the absence of masks and social distancing at his Tulsa campaign rally, Vice President Pence said, I want to remind you again, freedom of speech and the right to peaceably assemble is in the Constitution of the U.S. Even in a health crisis, the American people don't forfeit our constitutional rights." Pretty based. The subject of these constitution-based arguments is that mask mandates are a blatant violation of a person's right to choose or self-govern in what is supposed to be a nation founded on individualism, not collectivism. And yes, we're still going to tear this article a new asshole. With help from a liberal. And this means, and this right means citizens' ability to exercise their God-given choice about absent government tinkering and intrusion. What gives the government the authority to order citizens to cover their faces? The answer, of course, is stopping the spread of COVID-19 and saving lives. Think of the last video I just made. But while those would be excellent reasons for governmental intervention in a socialist country, still, this is America, and our Constitution secures our freedom of choice, even where that choice is not to wear a mask. This is why lawsuits such as Semmel-Weissman have popped up in courtrooms across the country. Semmel v. Weissman have popped up across the country. In Semmel, plaintiffs seek against Washington's Secretary of Health injunctive and declaratory relief, asking the court to issue an order declaring Washington's mask order to be in violation of their free speech and due process rights. So basically the same thing that the Ku Klux Klan guy did. What the Constitution directs about mask mandates. The Constitution contains no language concerning masks. For this reason, the Constitution can't make mask wearing constitutional. Instead, the Constitution makes mask wearing not unconstitutional on the following textual basis. The 10th Amendment states that all powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the Senate, by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. The 10th Amendment empowers states and local officials to pass and enforce necessary laws. That takes us to the First Amendment. The amendment anti-maskers routinely invoke while ignoring the 10th Amendment, and I'm an anti-masker. I'm still gonna tell this article, no asshole. Reserved by the states, respectively, or to the people. Blah, blah, blah. First Amendment. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech, press, petition, assembly, and religion. But a mask doesn't keep you from expressing yourself. Likewise, it doesn't require you to express yourself. Yes, it does. My way of expressing is to not wear a mask. It doesn't require you to express yourself a certain way. Yes, it does. As it would be the case if a particular style of mask were required. Yes, it is required to wear a specific type of mask. Dummies. Think we're stupid? At most, masks limit how you can speak. They want you to whisper. They want you to shut up. Make that. Someone is texting me. Not what you can say. And because this time, place, and manner restriction doesn't discriminate based on the content of a person's speech, it doesn't violate the First Amendment. That's a very loose way of putting it, okay? An example of this principle is a law that limits political campaigning within a certain distance of a polling place. Additionally, all constitutional rights, the First Amendment included, are subject to the governor's police power. That is, the government's authority. All constitutional rights are subject to the government's police power. That is the government's authority to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Indeed, the U.S. Supreme Court has long held that protecting public health is a sufficient reason to institute measures that might otherwise affront the First Amendment or other provisions in the Bill of Rights. To the extent anti-maskers object that masks violate their right to liberty, my body, my choice, they need merely read the Supreme Court's Jacobson versus Massachusetts decision. It explains why mask mandates don't violate any constitutional right to privacy, health, or bodily integrity. In Jacobson, the court upheld a smallpox vaccination requirement in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The court ruled that the requirement didn't violate Jacobson's right to liberty or the inherent right of every free man to care for his own body and health in such a way as to him seems best. The court added that there are manifold restraints to which every person is necessarily subject for the common good. On any other basis, organized society could not exist with safety to its members. From this, we can discern that the ideals of limited government do not absolve us of our social obligation to protect each other. We do not have a constitutional right to infect others. Now let's go back to that last article. What is it? No, let's go to Twitter. Let's go to Kurt Eichenwald's Twitter page. The lying of Trump et al. About coronavirus. Unfortunately, it makes people question everything they say. But they've been truthful about one important thing. So Trump told the truth about one thing. Don't wear a mask unless you're sick. If you are well, it can possibly increase your chance of infection. But let's enact mask mandates so that everybody has to wear a mask. That way the healthy people will get sick faster. Let's make it so that in order to go to places like Stagehouse Tavern or Domoko or a club or whatever, you have to wear a mask. Of course. So, Where is it? To infect others. The doctrine of time, place, and manner and Jacobson demonstrate that the protection of our constitutional liberties rides on the crucial assumption that the exercise of our rights must not endanger others. Again, Kurt Eichenwald, don't wear a mask unless you're sick. If somebody tries to force you to wear a mask, they want you to be sick. Maybe they're sick and are jealous that you're not. Maybe they just don't care about your health and just want you to shut up and wear a mask. And keep those viral particles close to you. Get yourself sick. Right. But this has nothing to do with my body, my choice. This has nothing to do with controlling a pandemic. They want to start a pandemic fast as possible. That's why they're trying to force everybody to wear a mask, because they want people sick. Okay? It's not about stopping the spread. It's about spreading COVID-19. Anti-maskers. Must not that the doctrine of time. I know I read this already. The doctrine of time, place, and manner, and Jacobson demonstrates that the protection of our constitutional liberties. So they're trying to say that you do have a right to force people to wear a mask. Okay. That the protection of our constitutional liberties rides on the crucial assumption that the exercise of our rights must not endanger others. But you have a right to force me to wear a mask, even though Kurt Eichenwald just told us that Trump didn't lie when he said if you're healthy and you wear a mask, you could make yourself sick. Yeah, okay. But people are dying. People are dying. You don't want to kill your grandma. You don't want to kill your dad or whatever, your grandma, your grandpa. You don't want to kill any of them. So if you're healthy, wear a mask. Make yourself sick. Why not? If you want to do anything, if you want to go on a date or go out for a drink, go into a Wawa to buy gas, you have to make yourself sick in order to do that. We know you're healthy. We don't care. We know it's not legal. We know it's not the law, but we don't care. Right, Wawa? Right, Stagehouse Tavern? Don't wear a face mask unless you're sick. Quote unquote, Kurt Mask Saves Lives, Eichenwald. If you're well, it can possibly increase your chance of infection. They don't give a shit about us. Chief Justice Roberts recently re-expressed this in South Bay, United Pentecostal Church versus Newsom, after recognizing that the governor of California's executive order aimed to limit the spread of COVID-19, a novel, severe, acute respiratory illness that has killed thousands of people in California, and more, than 100,000 nationwide, and for which there is no known cure, no effective treatment, and no vaccine. Chief Justice Roberts explained that constitutional rights are conditioned by the public's safety. Our Constitution principally entrusts the safety and health of all the people to the politically accountable officials of the states to guard and protect. Jacobson v. Massachusetts, 197 U.S. 113825 S.C.T. 35849 LED 643 1905. When those officials undertake to act in areas fraught with medical and scientific uncertainties, their latitude must be especially broad. Marshall v. United States, 414 U.S. 417 427 94 SCT 738 LED 2nd 618 1974. While those broad limits are not exceeded, they should be subject to second guessing by an unelected federal judiciary, which lacks the background, competence, and expertise to assess public health and is not accountable to the people. They should not be subject to second guessing. Okay, whoa. Where those broad limits are exceeded, they should not be subject to second guessing by an unelected federal judiciary which lacks the background, competence, and expertise to assess public health and is not accountable to the people. 20. Based on their preceding doctrines, the Supreme Court has consistently held that the government can act if its restrictions advance a compelling state interest to the least restrictive manner. In the least restrictive manner, the government does this routinely. If you think about it, the government oversight touches every part of our lives. Every morning, we eat food made from FDA-approved ingredients and maybe take FDA-approved medications. We climb into our cars and fasten our federally mandated seatbelts while driving the state speed limit. We probably turn on the radio to hear stations broadcasting according to FCC guidelines, and perhaps see motorcycles wearing state-required helmets. When we spend the day at our office with OSHA posters plastered in the lunchrooms and no state smoking requirement and state no smoking requirements. Few people question these restrictions and like them. A mask mandate is not an example of governmental overreach, but rather another reasonable policy intended to help keep us safe, so long as this government safety measure is neutral and generally applicable, promotes medical necessity, it does not violate the Constitution, and courts must defer to public health experts. Right. So, like I said, let's close this up, and then we'll get back to the part where I destroyed this article. Again. Okay? Then we're going to go back to where none of this article, after a certain point, makes any sense. And we're going to make it clear and plain for even the idiots to see. Alright? It does not violate the Constitution, and courts must defer to public health experts. Conclusion. As Tom Cruise famously exclaimed in A Few Good Men, it's not what I believe, but what I can prove. Though anti-maskers believe the Constitution supports their argument, they can't prove it. Using the Constitution to support an argument against wearing masks is insincere and would turn that document into a suicide pact. The Supreme Court has never interpreted the Constitution as anti-maskers insist, and decades ago, neither did people of similar ideology. Anti-maskers offer no textual support for their position because none exists. Oh, because none exists? Really? Oh, none exists. If anti-maskers can put aside the politics that infect this discussion, we're going to put politics to the side. Oh, yes, we are. Maybe they will understand that the call for mask wearing is a step toward isn't a step toward governmental tyranny, but rather now it's constitutionally based step toward preserving humankind. Right. So, because it's so constitutionally based, and because mask mandates are not unconstitutional, and we should defer to public health experts, we're going to go back over here to the expert over here, Kurt Eichenwald, who's talking about you fucking Christians who preen about God saving you from COVID so you don't need masks. You're what Jesus condemns. You kill with hypocrisy. Read Matthew 25:41-46. If you realize the Bible is about more than hating gays, you realize for your selfishness you'll burn in hell. So Thomas Missouri, this is part in the other video too, replied to Kurt Eichenwald, speaking of hypocrisy, and he replies with a picture of one of Kurt Mask Saves Lives Eichenwald's tweets, where he's giving Trump credit for telling some truth about the virus. So Trump said, don't wear a mask unless you're sick, and that if you're well, it can possibly increase your chance of infection. So this is about stopping the spread of COVID-19. You can stop lying now, okay? You can take off the mask. You can stop lying. The mask is a lie. It doesn't stop the spread. People who wear the mask get the virus. Okay, and you know what happens? Eventually everybody's going to get the virus. Everybody. Everybody's going to get the virus. The mask is not going to save you. And you spreading it to other people, you're just talking about the one virus that we're spreading to people. Okay? I get the whole speaking softly and whatever, all that, speaking with a normal tone of voice. I get that. Totally get it. But the mask thing? Wearing this thing can get me sick. And that's all I have to say.